Why is it after months of release, these drivers have already been traded in? The bigger question is it the club or the actual club build? And of course, to answer that question, I've got the exact carbon copy of the previous models. And on top of those results, I want you guys to be more educated so that when you come to a second-hand or potentially newer driver, you don't make the same costly mistakes. So last week I walked through Replay Golf's doors, and what did I see on the shelf? Some brand new 2025 equipment already being traded in. Of course, my detective skills were tingling and my curiosity was trying to think, why would anyone trade in a driver that's, let's be honest, only been out for a couple of months? And actually, it's a very simple question to answer on paper. We buy brand new equipment or even get club fitted for brand new equipment because we have a problem and we want a solution to that problem. Evidently, because both of these drivers are in my hand, you would like to presume that they didn't solve that problem that that particular golfer had. Now, before I dissect both of these builds and the potential problems both of these drivers highlight, I didn't ask the guys behind the desk who traded these in. Was it a pro shop or these ex-demo? And it's worth highlighting that other QI35s on the shelf are all brand new in the wrapper, so they haven't been traded in. And secondly, this is my hypothesis, but why is it so important? Because I want you guys to have a very clear understanding of what a club fitter knows and does and tinkers, and why I believe these are both 9 degree. Why I believe, even though these are both stiff legs, they're both very different in terms of shaft properties. Why I believe, yes, they're brand new and from 2 completely different brands, but these are completely different head types, which means when you put that all together, we have 2 incredibly different golfers. With that being said, I have to say, this is arguably the best looking TaylorMade driver. I hate to say it, but arguably the best looking TaylorMade driver for a while. We've been in a slump since the TaylorMade Sim 2. I'm not gonna lie when it comes to aesthetics. The Callaway Elite driver, however, is very much giving me an epic speed vibe. There's no question about that. And to be honest, a small part of me just hopes Callaway goes back to this very simplistic, organic, classic, winning aesthetic of black and gold, because let's be honest, you just can't get any better looking than that. The TaylorMade M2 2016 driver springs to mind. And for a few of you watching, you might have noticed I've been on a bit of a hiatus for the last 3 weeks as I'm attempting to build the world's first online driver fitting course, which will give you guys all the skills of knowing your swing, what driver you'll need, what shaft, kick, torque, etc, etc. And I'm starting to realize why this has never been attempted before, as there's a lot to cover. That being said, you'll get a glimpse through this video of what I'm attempting to show you guys. And for the very same reason that I don't review drivers when they first come out is the same reason I'm not gonna say that these are bad drivers whatsoever. I haven't hit this driver yet, and as you would have seen over the weekend with Rory's fantastic win at TPC Sawgrass, very much the attention of social media was him paying a $900 Uber to go and get his old QI10. And evidently for the average golfer, that would make you presume that Rory thinks the QI35 is worse in forgiveness and ball speed compared to his old driver. And I'm here to tell you that just simply won't be the case. At that level, at that club head speed, at that intense pressure, you want familiarity. And of course they would have built that new QI35 to a millimeter, as close as you possibly could get it to his old driver. We're talking swing weight, we're talking making sure the shaft is got the same torque, the same kick point. It's as close to the QI10 as you could possibly hope for. Yet placebo is a huge thing in this game that we just don't talk enough about. But then again, that's the whole point of this video and why I feel manufacturers have shot themselves in the foot, because every year they come, or every 2 years, they come out with a new driver going, this is the best and greatest thing ever. And then they do get tripped up when players go back to something with a bit more placebo, a bit more confidence. They know their exact numbers with that particular head weight, because for those players trying to hit those certain numbers and windows through their ball flight and yardages, that's the difference between winning $4.5 million and not making the weekend. Which is why I want to start with this driver in particular, in this particular build. Number one, I believe this guy is a big hitter. The reason I say that, there's no marks on the bottom whatsoever. There's a few marks on the face with obviously scratches, ball, X, Y, and Z. But if you're not seeing a scratch on the bottom of the driver, it's fair to assume that player's hitting up on the ball and not down on the golf ball, which then also implies that he's coming from the inside. Don't get me wrong, of course, you can come slightly across the ball and still hit up through the ball, as so many of the pros do themselves. But just for argument's sake, if you're coming from, let's say, the inside, that's going to want to be up, and if you're aggressively coming out to in, that wants to be down. This is why some of you guys will have scratches on the bottom of the driver and also marks on the crown as well. It's just a simple sign of you guys knowing that you're coming over the top and you're just getting too steep into the ball. Building upon from that, knowing the player probably comes on the inside and probably hits up through the ball, it's tough to know if they've got a left and right miss until we look at the head type, that is. The triple diamond is neutral to actually fade bias, which attempts to keep that face a touch more open. As we can see here, I've got the Rogue ST Max D. That does look very good, by the way. You can see the weight down the bottom left here with the heel. That wants to close the face on the way down, whereas actually this triple diamond, you can see how the weight there is more actually on the outside of the head, wanting to, well, keep that club face more open at impact. Which brings me into the last component. We have a Tensai 1K, the new one, black, which, to be perfectly honest, just like brand new clubs, I presume exactly the same as the old Tensai black. I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible, and obviously what I'm trying to explain in the course that I'm building, this is thinner than this. However, the walls of this would be thicker than up here. Therefore, the Tensai black wants to bend more up here, causing a higher kick point. Higher kick point means that this doesn't bend as much, therefore lower launch and lower spin. A Tensai blue, for example, the kick point is lower. So again, 65 grams, stiff flex, but a Tensai blue, it wants to kick down here more. It wants to add more launch. It wants to add more spin, which makes sense because we have a 9-degree driver loft. We actually have quite a small head type in the triple diamond. It's not going to want to add loft at impact compared to, let's say, the much larger and more forgiving Max or Max D Rogue ST that I have here, which means I feel this player adds too much loft. I'm talking dynamic loft. I'm talking spin loft, which is potentially why he sees that left shot a lot. And what I mean by that is, yes, he might be on the inside, but that face is so open on the way down. He's coming in from here. He needs to stack back. He needs to release the hands early. Therefore, this high kick point, Tensai black, stiff flex, triple diamond, 9-degree, is attempting to somewhat drop the spin. However, evidently, it either didn't solve the problem of the left or didn't solve the problem of dropping the spin. But that's why if I got fitted for a driver, it wouldn't be on the shelf within 2 months' time. All of the combinations put together through this bag build will help the numbers, will nurture the numbers in terms of you changing your technique. However, it's not this Callaway Elite's fault that it ended up back on the shelf, but potentially the whole marketing campaign and this pedestal that we put on brand new equipment and club fitting to be the ultimate solution to fixing our game, where actually it's a kind of marriage between technique and equipment. We're going to hit this towards the end, all 4 drivers, to show you the difference between head type, shaft, loft, rather than just brand or even one's newer or one's older. Which brings me on to this rather good looking thing. I can't wait for this to be £200 in 3 years' time. And as we can faintly see there on the tail of this QI35, we've got a scratch that's going, well, pointing out to, I guess, the left-hand side, meaning to make that, we would have to hit the ground, well, kind of like that. Now, we'll talk about this Ventus Blue in a minute in terms of the shaft, but 9 degrees is an interesting choice, and I only presume it's 9 degrees to keep that spin loft down. However, let's say I'm now hitting down on the ball, and I'm trying to launch this at, let's say, 11 degrees. And because I glanced it and because I hit it out the hill, we didn't get as much ball speed as we deserved. And of course, there's multiple things that affect spin loft. However, you can see the increase in backspin that we've just got there. Come on, Simon, 103 miles an hour. Oh, that felt good. 104, there she is. 4 degrees up, 10 degrees launch, meaning we're now down to 2,800 worth of spin. 1 mile an hour faster than that swing that I hit a minute ago that barely got to 220. Now we've got 275 yards total with decent launch and decent spin, not to mention because everything was traveling towards the target. It hit a brick wall and we got relatively decent efficiency. Therefore, we look at the shaft. We've got a Ventus Blue here, and I'll show you the chart. It's a mid-launching shaft, which is supposed to promote low spin, which again kind of computes what we're after there. We've got a player that potentially comes too steep down into the ball, creating these marks onto the head. The irony is this build here probably, if that was the particular golfer's swing, as good as you're going to get it. It's a light, stiff flex mid-launch to help try and close that face and add a bit of launch. A forgiving head, because again, steep swings are very difficult to find the middle of the face consistently. But as I showed earlier with two very similar speed swings, technique is the ultimate factor. And again, as I say, manufacturers make it seem like drivers can do virtually everything regardless of technique. And sadly, that's just not the case, no matter how good this thing looks, sounds, feels, and obviously performs. Now, obviously, I have the QI10 Max to test against the QI35 Max, and I've whacked it in the same Ventus shaft. But again, the numbers are so close together. I think it's also important, one thing we didn't talk about today is just strike location. The first one I hit with the QI10 was very much out the heel, so lower launch, more spin. The next one I hit slightly higher off the toe, therefore higher launch and less spin. Just like I did with my last one with the QI35. And to give you some understanding on how much 1,000 RPM makes a difference, they're my heel shots and kind of centered shots with this, let's say, higher launching head than the Elite that I'll test in a minute. But look at those two toe shots on both drivers. They're virtually on top of each other. Now, what we're expecting to see from this smaller head design, lower spin shaft, lower launch shaft, that if I do hit out the middle or the heel, it should go just as far as those toe strikes that I just had with the QI Maxes. That's if, in fact, I can put a decent swing on it. So we will see, shan't we? Well, sounded good. Tiny bit faster than the other two. Spin is very low. That's 313 carry. What I'm trying to express here is not technology, not brand, because TaylorMade make a Callaway triple diamond head in the QI35 LS. To a degree, I'm not really saying it's all club fitting or technique either, but it's definitely a bit of both. And even with this fade bias head, I can still very much hit it left with my poor technique. However, those two shots with the Elite, I hit directly out the middle. There was no toe strikes there whatsoever. Did we see somewhat lower launch and lower spin? Well, yeah, we did. I think it's worth noting that I've put 9-degree heads in all of these, so the loft's exactly the same. With the same head type, the same loft, the same shaft as the last triple diamond head, we should, in theory, see exactly the same shot. I didn't even change the color code to the AI smoke, but there's probably no need as it's done exactly the same thing as its newer version. Triple diamond heads, low launch, low spin shaft at 117 miles an hour. Lower launch, lower spin meant a lot more distance at this speed. Just for a comparison, I feel like this weight in shaft, the feel, which definitely is a thing with shafts, made me swing it a touch faster, I was confident with it, made me find the middle more, so I got more ball speed. But to be honest, my impact factors didn't really change. Still on the inside with all of them, still hit up with all of them. Yet that is a very big difference in carry distance. We are talking almost 30 odd yards, not to mention total distance as well. Why? Because let's be honest, my spin was that much lower on average. Arguably too low, hence why I don't play a triple diamond in a low launch, low spin shaft, because I'd probably want it somewhat in between all three of those. Guys, if you've got any questions on your golf bag or golf game, sasgolfacademy.com. Catch you guys later.